The morning we left, I counted £8.32 in my purse and told my children we were going on an adventure. I have told that story a few times now. I tell it the way you tell a thing, when you have processed it enough to shape it into something survivable. But I want to be honest with you today, because this is not a story that ends cleanly, and the part I am building toward, the part involving a document that nobody expected, produced by a man I had never met, at a moment when I had already accepted that we had lost. That part still catches in my throat if I am not careful. So, I will be careful, and I will start at the beginning, which is not £8.32, but a man named Roger. My name is Sharon. I am 38 years old. I have 3 children, Tyler, who is 11, Demi, who is 8, and the youngest, Joel, who was 4 when this started and is now 6 and has no memory of any of it, which is the one merciful thing. My partner Carl works on a logistics depot outside Coventry on rotating shifts. We are not people with savings. I want to be clear about that without embarrassment, because the financial reality of the story is the whole point of it, and pretending otherwise would be dishonest. We live month to month, we always have. When something breaks, we fix the cheaper thing and leave the expensive thing for later. Later is a place we have been meaning to visit for about 12 years. Roger owned a development of converted commercial units on the edge of an industrial estate in Coventry, former light industrial spaces that had been reconfigured with varying degrees of conviction into residential accommodation. Ours was a 2-storey unit, a ground floor that had been a storage space and a first floor that had been offices, converted into a kitchen diner, a living room and 3 bedrooms. The ceilings were high and bare, the floors were poured concrete on the ground level, covered with a thin laminate that felt cold through socks from October through April. The windows were large and industrial and let in draft the way a sieve lets in water. But the rent was £780 a month, which was £300 less than anything comparable in the area, and we had 3 children and no alternatives we could afford, so we signed. The deposit was £2,400, 6 weeks' rent. We paid it from money Carl had been putting aside for 18 months from his shift premium. I want you to understand the weight of that number. £2,400 in a household that runs on margins is not a deposit. It is an emergency fund, it is a car repair, it is 3 months of school uniforms and shoes and packed lunches and the kind of buffer that means when the boiler makes a noise, you don't immediately start shaking. We handed it to Roger's letting agent in cash in an envelope and received a receipt. 1 piece of paper, 1. Now I want to stop, because I think you might be ahead of me already. You might be thinking, deposit, cash, 1 receipt, commercial conversion, developer, and you might be thinking, did he protect it? And the answer to that question is the engine of everything that happened next. But I am not going to give you that answer yet, because first I need to tell you what Roger did, which is different from what he failed to do, and both matter. We lived in that unit for 14 months. 14 months of cold floors and drafty windows and the low-frequency hum of the industrial state that you stopped noticing after about a week but which lived in the walls constantly, a sound like a machine breathing slowly somewhere below the ground. I reported 4 maintenance issues over 14 months, a bathroom extractor that stopped working in month 2, a leak from the flat roof above the kitchen in month 7, a heating pipe that knocked every morning from month 9, and damp appearing on the bedroom wall shared with the exterior in month 11. Roger's response to each of these was a variation on a single theme. Acknowledged, being assessed, someone will be in touch. Nobody was ever in touch. The damp on Tyler's bedroom wall grew to the size of a dining table. I put a picture over part of it, which is the kind of coping mechanism that tells you everything about where we were. In month 13, Roger announced that the development had been sold. New ownership, all tenancies would be reviewed. We received a formal notice to quit, a Section 21 notice, no fault 2 months, and by the time it arrived we had already started looking. We found a council house on the other side of the city, slightly smaller, on a waiting list we had been on for 4 years that had finally moved. We gave notice, we cleaned. We cleaned the way you clean when you are terrified of losing £2,400. Every surface, every corner, 4 hours on hands and knees on that cold laminate floor with a bucket of hot water and white vinegar because I could not afford proper cleaning products, and someone online said it worked. It does, mostly. My hands were red and raw for 3 days afterward. We left on a Friday. The following Tuesday, a letter arrived at our new address. Roger's agent was withholding the deposit in full. £2,400, alleged damage to the laminate flooring, alleged staining on the ground floor walls, alleged cleaning costs of £620. The total claimed against us, £3,040, more than we had paid. We owed him money, on paper, in a letter, after cleaning that flat on our hands and knees. Carl read the letter twice. Then he put it down on the kitchen table and went very quiet, which is what he does instead of crying, and I sat across from him and thought, I do not have the energy for this, and that is the truest thing I can tell you about where we were. Not anger, not fight, just the specific, bone-deep exhaustion of someone who has been managing on margins for too long and has now been handed one more thing. I went to Citizens Advice the following Thursday. The advisor there, a woman named Bev, took the receipt I had brought and looked at it for about 30 seconds and asked me one question. She said, "Do you have any documentation showing which deposit protection scheme your deposit was registered with?" I said no. She said, "Did you ever receive anything called prescribed information?" I said I did not know what that was. She said, "I think that might be the problem." She referred me to a housing solicitor named Marcus, who operated through a local law centre on a legal aid basis for cases meeting the financial threshold. We met the threshold, we met it considerably. Marcus was 44 years old, slightly rumpled, with the focused calm of someone who has decided not to waste energy on anything that isn't the case in front of him. He looked at my receipt, at the letter from Roger's agent, at the Section 21 notice, and at 3 months of email correspondence, and then he ran the checks himself. He searched all 3 government-approved tenancy deposit protection schemes. The Deposit Protection Service, my deposits, the Tenancy Deposit Scheme. Our deposit was in none of them. £2,400, held in cash, never registered, never protected, no prescribed information ever issued. Roger had been sitting on our emergency fund for 14 months and had never once complied with his legal obligation to protect it under the Housing Act 2004. Marcus explained what this meant. Under the relevant legislation, a landlord who fails to protect a deposit and fails to issue prescribed information within 30 days of receiving it is liable to pay the tenant between 1 and 3 times the deposit amount as a penalty, in addition to returning the deposit itself. He said he would argue for 3 times. 3 times £2,400 is £7,200, plus the deposit returned, total potential award £9,600. I remember sitting in his office and doing the arithmetic twice because I could not quite make myself believe the number. But here is the part I promised you. Here is the thing that happened in the courtroom that nobody expected, including Marcus, including me, including, I suspect, Roger. The hearing was in the county court in Coventry on a Wednesday in October. Roger attended with his solicitor, a man named Alan, who had the well-pressed bearing of someone billing at a rate that made our legal aid status feel pointed. Roger's defence was straightforward. He argued that the units in the development were not residential tenancies under the Housing Act. They were commercial leases for mixed-use properties, and therefore the deposit protection requirements did not apply. His solicitor presented the original commercial planning permission for the units. He presented the lease documentation, which described the properties as mixed residential and commercial. He presented a planning assessment, suggesting the conversion had not obtained the necessary change of use consent for full residential occupation. If this argument succeeded, Roger owed us nothing. The penalty provisions would not apply. We would lose the claim and have no route to recover the deposit through the scheme. Marcus challenged the commercial lease argument on statutory grounds, but he told me during the lunch recess, quietly and without drama, that the planning documentation was a genuine complication. He said, "The judge may find there is a threshold question here that needs to go to a further hearing." He said it the way someone says a thing when they want to prepare you for the possibility that today is not the day. I sat on a plastic chair in the corridor and thought about Tyler's bedroom wall. Then, the afternoon session started, and a man named Philip stood up. Philip was 61 years old, a retired planning officer from Coventry City Council, who had, entirely independently, without any contact from Marcus or from me, submitted a witness statement to the court. He had read about the case through a housing rights newsletter he received by email, and he had recognised the address of the development because he had personally processed a planning application related to it 4 years earlier. He had submitted the statement 3 days before the hearing, which is why it had arrived in the supplementary bundle that Roger's solicitor had been given time to review, and had chosen not to respond to in detail, perhaps calculating it was peripheral. It was not peripheral. Philip's statement confirmed that the development had received full change of use consent from commercial to residential, under a planning approval granted 4 years and 2 months before we moved in. The consent was unconditional. The units were legally residential. Roger's commercial lease argument was built on a planning status that had not existed for 4 years. Roger's solicitor asked for time to review the documentation. The judge gave him 20 minutes. He came back and said his client wished to make no further submissions on the planning point. The judge ruled in our favour on the deposit protection failure. He awarded the deposit returned in full and a penalty of 2 times the deposit amount, not 3, 2. Total awarded £7,200. Marcus shook my hand outside the courtroom. I did not cry until I was in the car park, which I consider a personal achievement. I called Carl from a concrete stairwell that smelled of cold air and cigarette smoke, and I told him the number, and he said nothing for a moment and then said, "Right. Just that. Right. 14 months of quiet, and 1 word." Philip, the retired planning officer, had never met us. He had seen a newsletter item about a tenant family in Coventry, recognised an address, pulled out his files and written a witness statement on his own time because he thought it was the right thing to do. I wrote him a letter afterward, a paper letter, because it seemed to require something more deliberate than an email. He wrote back. He said he was glad it had helped. He said he had spent 30 years in planning, and he knew what developers did with ambiguous planning histories. He said he had been waiting for an opportunity to put one on the record. The money arrived in our account 31 days after the judgment, £7,200. We paid off the credit card debt we had accumulated during the case. We replaced the boiler in the new house, which had been making a sound, a low, rhythmic knock, exactly like the pipe in the old unit. Since the week we moved in, we fixed the expensive thing, finally. But here is where I have to be honest with you about something I have not resolved. Roger still owns properties, he still runs developments. The county court judgment is on the record, but it does not prevent him from doing it again to someone else. The penalty we received came from our deposit, money we should have had back anyway. It was not a fine, it was not a regulatory action. It was 2 families' worth of emergency fund, eventually returned after 14 months in a court case, because a retired planning officer happened to be on a mailing list. I think about the families in Roger's other units, the ones who did not have a Philip, the ones who looked at the letter, at the £3,040 owed, at the £8.32 and decided they did not have the energy. I understand that decision. I came very close to making it myself. So, I want to ask you something. If you had been sitting at that kitchen table with Carl, looking at that letter, with 3 children in the next room and nothing left in your purse, would you have gone to Citizens' Advice? Would you have believed at that moment that it was worth trying? Because I almost didn't. And sometimes I think about what would have happened if I hadn't, and I cannot quite finish the thought. Tell me what you would have done. I want to know.